Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you've earned here tonight.
There were some things going on in sports today that will make your brain fall out of your skull.
It's sports.
All around the clock, sports all the time. That's the concept of the news.
Oh, that's never going to work.
How would you like to manage the Indians this year?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? This is a chance to manage in the big leagues.
Let me think it over, will you, Charlie? I got a guy on the other line about some white walls. I'll talk to you later.
As you know, Monty, Vaughn's been working on a couple of new pitches, the Eliminator and the Humiliator, to complement his fastball, the Terminator. I heard that. Dynamite drop-in, Monty. That broadcast school has really paid off.
You want to settle old scores, you're on the wrong team. We move forward starting right now. We start becoming a team right now.
And now, the sports issue with Jason and Toivo.
I'll have to say this first. I wonder that clip with Lou Brown saying, I don't know about coaching the Cleveland Indians. Kind of wonder if that's what Paul Claflin thinks about when he puts his softball team together this summer. We had an interesting year this year. Just had to throw that out there.
Well, I'm sure that's what Coach Claflin goes through there when he gets that phone call at the beginning of the season.
I think he gets that phone call quite earlier than the normal season about that. But now we talked about a lot of the other football games. Now we're going to head to the NFC North. First, we'll start in Chicago. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on Mark Trustman's Chicago Bears.
Tough one.
I think of all the week one games, this might be one of the toughest ones to pick.
You know what? New coach, new season, fresh start. I'm going to go with the Bears.
See, I'm going Cincinnati. Andy Dalton, I like A.J. Green on the outside. They got some good weapons. I think it'll be a good one for them.
I think it's going to be a great game. It just depends on what product the Bears put on the field. Lovie Smith being fired last year. Don't know that he deserved that. Have a 10-win season and you're fired, a couple years removed from the Super Bowl. Nonetheless, Bears are starting fresh. I think definitely Mike Tice needed to be gotten rid of, but he didn't work out in Minnesota and certainly didn't work out in Chicago. But I'm going to have to go with the Bears on that one.
Well, that should be an exciting game. I'm going to go with the Bengals. I think they got too many weapons. I know it doesn't seem like it, but they got the law firm in the backfield, like him and a few others. I think Green on the outside is going to be a huge thing. And with no Brian Urlacher, you don't know really what you're going to expect from the Chicago Bear defense. So I think Cincinnati's going to win a close one, but I think they're going to pull it off.
Yeah, you don't know what to expect. Brian Urlacher, he was the heart and soul of that defense for so long, and we saw it, on Thursday night when Ray Lewis no longer on that Baltimore defense, and it showed definitely. I mean, love him or hate him, he was the heart and soul of that defense, and Peyton Manning just picked him apart. And I can tell you what, right now, I think the Patriots are kicking themselves for getting rid of Wes Welker and putting him in the hands of Peyton Manning.
Well, I got to touch on a little thing about that game. Wes Welker, a play that I don't think obviously was the outcome of the game. 3rd down and 9, Welker catches a one-hopper. Officials call it a complete pass. NBC reviews the replay. Harbaugh does not challenge. John Harbaugh does not challenge it. Comes in the press conference after the game, said he had no clue that ball hit the ground and blames NBC. Seriously, you have coaches that watch it. They actually counted it down and mentioned it that there was and part of it goes on Peyton Manning because he's quick to the line. They snapped the ball 24 seconds after that play had happened. So Manning was quick to the line, got everyone ready. There was 5 seconds left before he snapped the ball when the replay was finished. So you can't tell me there's not a coach up there that wasn't ready to let him know, to challenge that play.
Well, it doesn't fall back on the replay guy at the stadium or anything like that. It falls back on the coaching staff, and you've seen it time and time again where coaches are sitting there waiting for the replay. When you're away, you're not going to see it right away. It's just not going to happen. So just buck up, make the call, because you have 2 challenges, and guess what? If you win 2.5, you get an extra one. So just do it. And it seems like sometimes those coaches hang on to those challenges like they're gold, and it's ridiculous. And they should do it. And obviously no fault to the Broncos or anything like that, or the officiating staff, because they make mistakes. It's the reason why the challenge is there. Throw the flag.
Well, you mentioned saving on to them like they're gold. Mike McCarthy on the other side for the Packers just throws them away on obvious situations. You sit there just shaking your head bewildered at some of his challenges. But I'm going to lead into that just because the Packers is the next game we're going to talk about. They're facing the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers put it to them twice last year. And now there's some hubbub, as you heard. I may have heard, may not have heard. I'll give you a quick backstory on it. Clay Matthews talked about it Monday and Tuesday earlier in the week, that the San Francisco 49er team, they run the read option offense. Well, what that means is Colin Kaepernick holds on the football, hands it off to Gore, or keeps it himself. And the Packers are talking about what you're supposed to do when you face that offense. That quarterback is still a live player, even when he's running out that fake, and they're talking about popping him. They want to make Kaepernick a pocket passer, which they need to do if they're going to have success. Harbaugh is complaining and saying that he's not a type of player. He's a quarterback in that spot and should not be allowed to be hit in that type of situation. Are you kidding me?
I get where Harbaugh is coming from, because there's so much emphasis now on protecting the quarterback, and I understand that. However, I do agree with you. He is not a passer until he establishes himself in the pocket. If he is faking a handoff or handing it off or whatever, he's free game. And I'm assuming that there's no ill intention there, and that the Packers are just saying, hey, we're going to hit him because that's our job. This is what we're going to do. I'm assigned to the quarterback. That is what my job is. If he presents himself as a runner or the possibility to be a runner, I'm going to tackle him.
And Harbaugh has been known in the past to lobby the refs weeks before. He did, I believe it was against Seattle. That was a big deal between him and Mr. Carroll up in Seattle, and now you can see it now. As Clay Matthews just saying, we're not trying to hurt him. We got to hit him. We got to rough him up. That's what you do. You want to hit the quarterback. And he's pulling out that fake. As you saw in the playoff game last year, no one touched him ever. And he ran for a career high, and I believe it was an NFL record for a quarterback in the postseason against Green Bay last time. And that's what they got to do. They got to rough him up. They got to hit him a little bit. But first, we'll hear a little audio from Aaron Rodgers about what they expect to see from the 49ers.
We expect guys to be prepared, first of all. There's going to be physical mistakes. There's going to be drops. There could be a couple errant passes. But the mental mistakes are ones that, we have a hard time with, because those are directly tied to your preparation. So we expect guys to be prepared and study the plan and take notes in meetings, and when they get on the field, be able to transfer that over.
Prediction time. What do you got?
This is another tough one, because you got two quality teams in the NFC. But I'm sorry, Jason, I can't pick the Packers to win. It's going to be 49ers in a close one.
I think it's going to be a close game. In our office little pool, of course, I went green and gold. A lot of interesting stuff has happened in this offseason. I think that has focused Aaron Rodgers even more. You have Donald Driver running his mouth about something that makes absolutely no sense to me about Aaron Rodgers as a leader. He's talking about as a wide receiver, wanting his quarterback taking the blame for him running a bad route, which I still have not figured out the quotes that he had said about that, and trying to get there. Greg Jennings running his mouth a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Of course, you expect that from, I think, you don't really expect from Greg Jennings the type of player, but with the Packer-Viking rivalry, you expect that. So that doesn't surprise me. I think the Packers are going to be refocused. Their line is going to be, has always been interesting. Eddie Lacy now with Dwan Harris out at quarterback or out at running back. I just think it's going to be close, and I'm going to go. And Mason Crosby scares me more than any other player on the football field as a kicker. But I still got the green and gold, and a narrow one.
It's going to be close. I mean, either way, I think either one of our picks, it could go either way.
And that's the thing. Of course, I'm going with the green and gold goggles on that one, but I could see the 49ers, and I could possibly even see the 49ers running away with it if they don't touch Kaepernick.
Yeah, that's just it. They got to get to him. If they let him run, it's going to be a tough night for the Packers.
Now, the final game, of course, you can hear it on our sister station, 96.9 KMFY. Paul Allen, Pete Burchett, Greg Coleman, and company on the call. Kickoff 12 noon, pregame show 11 a.m. The Minnesota Vikings take on the Detroit Lions, the Motor City Kitties. Jarius Wright talks about being ready for this first game.
You know, it's very exciting for me. Like you said, last year I really didn't get a chance to be a part of opening day last year, and this year just going out there and being able to make a difference in Sunday's game.
Should be an exciting one. I'm going with Detroit for a couple of reasons. Now that the word is out that Kevin Williams is not playing, that puts a lot of pressure on Sharif Floyd. Xavier Rhodes is going to be put in a big spot, possibly going against Kelvin Johnson at a few times. So the running back battle is a no-brainer. The Vikings got the advantage there because they got the best running back in the game in Adrian Peterson. But I think the intangibles on the outside, what Christian Ponder are you going to get? Are you going to get the one that torched Green Bay at the final regular season game of the year, or are you going to get the one that laid a few eggs and a couple stinkers early in the year?
I gotta go Homer on this one. I'm gonna say Vikings, but it all depends on what that dynamic duo between Stafford and Calvin Johnson. Obviously, the Vikings have had issues in their secondary over the course of the last couple of years. Adrian Peterson is, I'm sure, ready to play. I was going to say Lovie Smith. Leslie Frazier.
That's never gonna work.
Right. Leslie Frazier being cautiously optimistic about Adrian Peterson by getting him his 3 plays in the preseason. But I'm going to say Vikings just because I can't. I got to be a homer on this one. But I'm not gonna give any promises, but I'll say Vikings.
You made a very interesting. You talked about it a little bit. You mentioned Kelvin Johnson. It's tough to slow him down, but I think the key to this game is gonna be Reggie Bush.
It very well could be. I mean, if they establish a run on the Vikings, especially like you said, without Kevin Williams, it's gonna be tough for them in there. Well,
with Reggie
Vikings.
Bush, as our colleague Jason Meredith found out the last few years in Miami, he's a good option to catch the ball. And last year, the Detroit running backs combined for over 90 catches from Stafford. So the way they really run the ball is just those little flare passes to Reggie. So if he's able to get in that second level defense against the Vikings, it's going to be huge. And that's going to give Stafford another weapon.
I would expect to see some swing passes to the outside, but here's another one. I expect to see some possible middle screens from him because that would be a great opportunity, like I said, without Kevin Williams being in there, to establish that the middle of the field, maybe some quick slants over the middle of the field to Reggie Bush or any one of the slot receivers over there. They obviously added him for a reason. I mean, they brought Reggie Bush on for a reason, and to add a little bit of element to the dynamic duo of Stafford and Johnson, they need a little bit more weapons out there. So we could expect anything from Detroit.
I have to say it's kind of interesting. One player we haven't mentioned for either team going into a final year of his contract, Jared Allen on the outside. I think he's going to have a big game, and that's going to play a big role. Everyone knows I'm not the biggest Jared Allen fan. I haven't been, but he's a great player. And he brings it every play, and that's going to be the thing against a defense, a Detroit Lion line that's never been too great. They got a key on him, especially without Kevin Williams in the middle. It's going to change a little bit of the blocking scheme because you don't know what you're going to get from Sharif Floyd.
That's just it. I think, like you said, Jared Allen going into the last year of his contract, the Vikings are obviously going to want to keep him around for a few more years. I think he will have a big game. I expect at least 1 sack out of him this week. I just think that he's got to establish himself out there on the defense because let's face it, if without Kevin Williams, they are a different defense.
Well, we'll take a quick time out, but just remember, we'll have that Viking football game Sunday on our sister station, 96.9 KMFY. Kickoff noon, pregame show at 11. We have Brent Shimmick calling in here in just a few minutes. We'll have him to talk Deer River football, and we'll still talk some more area sports. When we come back from this timeout, though, we'll take a look at some area college action that's kicking off. The Minnesota Gophers take on New Mexico State tonight, and a home game here in town in Grand Rapids. ICC taking on Rochester. We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back, as you're listening to The Sports Issue right here on 1320 KOZY, as well, streaming online at KOZYRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Coach Florsheim of the GNK Titan Cross Country Team, and you're listening to The Sports Issue with Jason and Toivo on 1320 KOZY and KOZYRadio.com.
Welcome back here to The Sports Issue. I'm Jason Groth. Toivo will be back momentarily, but it's some exciting events going on tonight here. First, at the Noble Hall Field, one we can touch on. The ICC Vikings open up their home season. They take on the potent Rochester Yellow Jackets. Kickoff for that one at 2 o'clock. Quick results last week in the MCAC. It was Ridgewater opening up 47-8 over Itasca. A rough way for head coach Tom Inferzano taking over the helm for Itasca to start the season, but it was a very close game at half. I believe it was just a one-possession game at half. A very young Itasca team. Ridgewater capitalized on a couple of mistakes, took control of that contest, ended up winning 47-8. That should be a fun one today. Rochester brings pretty much a community when they come to town for that one.
Should be a great game there for the Vikings. Expect to be up there a little bit later and check that out.
Kickoff for that one, 2 o'clock. Minnesota West knocked out Vermilion 41-7 last week. Fergus Falls beat Mesabi Range 34-12. Central Lakes knocked out Fond du Lac 34-6, and Rochester won a shootout against Northland 39-34. Also tonight, just a quick reminder, Golden Gopher football on the air. Should be an exciting one. They take on New Mexico State. Finds you can't find it on TV unless you have BTN mobile to go type thing. So here's the only place you can hear it. Gophers, New Mexico State, kickoff 7 o'clock, pregame show 6 o'clock.
Yeah, this will be a big one for the Gophers here. They can get a win here tonight and establish themselves early here in their non-conference schedule. And that's what the Gophers need, is they need to go into their non-conference schedule undefeated. You know, whether it's a weak schedule, strong schedule, it doesn't matter. If they go into that non-conference schedule undefeated, you know, virtually they only have to win a couple games to get into a bowl.
Well, Philip Nelson's going to need to have a big night. I think he just needs to have one of those nights to establish himself. Yeah, he did a great game on the ground, but I think it'd be nice to see him have a nice night around in the air. Last week, they were giving him the ground attack, was UNLV. They gave him the ground game. He took advantage of it, took what the defense gave him. Now he needs to do that against New Mexico State, who got pounded by Texas to open the year. Well, that game will start tonight. Kickoff again is at 7 o'clock, and it should be an exciting one. Pre-game show starts at 6 o'clock. We'll have that for you right here on 1320 KOZY, and make sure to tune in for that game. We'll be back after a quick timeout as you're listening to The Sports Issue right here on 1320 KOZY, KOZYRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Coach Florsheim of the GNK Titan Cross Country Team, and you're listening to The Sports Issue with Jason and Toivo on 1320 KOZY and KOZYRadio.com.
Thank you. Welcome back to The Sports Issue. I am joined now by head coach of the Deer River Warriors, Brent Shimmick. And Brent, how's it going today?
Good, very good.
Well, we had a big win last night over the Mesabi East Giants. Talk a little bit about that game.
Yeah, it was a big win for us. Starting off the year 2-0, and building good momentum for the rest of the year.
And Mesabi East started out the game with a kind of a huge drive. Took a lot of time off the clock, almost 8 minutes. Tell me a little bit how you regrouped after that and came back in the second quarter to take the eventual lead.
Well, we sort of expected that. Mesabi's a true wishbone team this year, so that's going to be a lot of ground and pound. We only ran like 38 plays for the whole night, and that was, I'm sure they had time possession big time, as far as if you added up the time, but that's what their strategy is with that style of offense. They're just going to run the clock and try to wear you down, and so we knew we were going to have to survive some volleys back and forth, and we talked to the kids a lot about that, and it was good for us because we needed to get down probably. We got a very young team, and it was good to see, like I told them after the game, how you react when your back's against the wall and you're down a little bit.
And I thought you guys did very well with that. And it was kind of, I got to mention, it was kind of surprising. I haven't seen the wishbone offense since Superior ran it back in the 90s. What did you kind of see in a surprise there once you saw game film?
Well, I was exactly like you. Last time I faced a team that was, true wishbone, other than running it just a little bit here and there as part of their offensive scheme, but that was going to stay in it. And Pound You was the same thing. It was like 1995, and they don't run the option out of it, which is probably a good thing. I'm sure they're going to work on that and add that into there because that's going to add a threat to that. But they had some big kids, some size, and they didn't have as many numbers as probably as we had, but they were going to, that was their strategy, just to pound it at you and use that big fullback and a couple of those big linemen.
And what are some of the adjustments that you guys made to stop that running attack? As it seemed like in the first quarter, Neil Seibel had the edge on the outside, but it seemed like in that second half and second quarter, you guys really shored up the contain to the outside. What are some of the things that you guys adjusted to at the half to compensate for that?
Well, defensively, we were pretty conservative to start the game. I didn't want to give up a big play, and have a big momentum shift. So, really, the only adjustments we made, they didn't throw the ball a lot. We knew they weren't going to throw the ball a lot. They only came out of that wishbone formation and ran a little twins. And even when they did that, it was mainly to crack back and run sweep out of it. So we just started gambling a little bit more, calling a lot of blitzes in different spots, and at the same time moving the defensive lineman around. So we were trying to make it so every time that offensive line of theirs came up to the line, it was a different look, and they'd have to rethink their blocking assignments. So it was a good compliment to our kids, because that means we got to think and make sure we get our alignments lined up right. So it worked out.
Now I got to talk about kind of the game shifter in momentum in the fourth down call for Coach Grams to go for it on 4th down and 2. They fall short by inches. We were talking about it on the broadcast last night. It was a gutsy call, but I believe that it was the right call for the Giants at that point in time. They had nothing to lose. Establish a little bit more of that second quarter, but you guys did well, stopped it, and eventually the next play, Jesse Miller goes 38 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah, it was a big play. Like you said, a momentum switch. I would have gone for it too. They've been moving the ball very well. They had 79 yards rushing in the first quarter. There was only 2 series in the first quarter. They had like the 8 minutes you said, and then we had our series and came up short. But they have big fullback. You think they were probably averaging 4 yards a pop at the time. So getting that 2 yards probably wasn't that much of a gamble. And then Jesse ran hard all night. We only had, like I said, 38 plays probably total, but Jesse carried the ball 12 times for 131 yards, so he ran very hard, and our line did a very good job, offensive line.
Now, once again, you guys this year establishing the run game, have had 2 backs over 100 yards in consecutive games, but we also do have to mention the air game as well, as that has proved successful, and we saw a nice touchdown pass from Aaron Drotz to Ben Eby last night.
Yeah, we've been trying to keep it as balanced as we can. We have 2 quarterbacks with 2 very unique skill sets. They complement each other really well. Aaron came in there really short-handed right before halftime. I just pulled him off. He was playing receiver and said, "You're going in to throw the ball." He's got a little bit stronger arm, and we were going to run a specific play because they're playing some man coverage and had been rotating in. So they were getting a little bit tired at that time, and we're rotating in some younger DBs at defensive back, and we were trying to get a matchup that we got, and to Aaron's credit, he missed. He dodged a blitzing linebacker there, and from our tape last week, I'm sure they were concentrating on Cole Schultz a lot. He had a pretty good game last week, and they sort of over guarded him over on the sideline on the route that we ran, leaving Ben Eby open, and he made a good catch and a good run.
And, we saw it last night with your defense in the second half, really tightening things up. Talk about that defensive line getting great pressure on the quarterback when he did have, a couple of pass attempts, but there's a couple of times where there were sacks or hit while he threw the ball, and they also stopped the almost 200-pound fullback pretty much every play in the second half. You got to give kudos to your defensive line.
Oh yeah, I mean that was huge. We've been talking about that all week with this. That's one thing about that wishbone. If you can get a little pressure up the middle, there's not a lot of room back there. You got 3 backs back there already stacked pretty tight to the quarterback. That quarterback does not have a lot of room to operate there. So if you can get up the field a little bit, we rotated a lot of kids in and out in that front line, the middle 3. Actually, a defensive end too, trying to keep kids a little fresh. And Guza Egan, our big nose, number 74 in the second half, sort of took over a few times and really pushed that center back into the quarterback. And they like to roll him out as far as throwing. And one compliment to the kids there, I think it was in the fourth quarter where we had a certain defensive alignment the time before and blitzed our middle linebacker, Seth Fairbanks, for a big sack to get out of one series. And the next time when we lined up with that formation, he just called a timeout to get out of it because he knew what was coming. And that's a compliment to the kids.
And we talked about Jesse Miller all over the field on offense, but he was as well on defense up that middle linebacker spot. Talk about how his play and the other linebackers' play during that game last night.
Yeah, our two leading tacklers were both linebackers, Jesse Miller and Seth Fairbanks, and then Seth added a couple sacks in there too. And we're a young team. We have 6 seniors, and they're doing a great job leading these younger kids. Some of them have some experience from last year. A lot of them don't. And Jesse's one of those captains there, and he knows when to push them and when to compliment them, and he's just doing an excellent job leading these young men. And he ended up being our leading tackler and our last night with 8.5 tackles, and he had a couple other pass defenses in there when they were passing the ball. So I can't say enough about what those senior guys have been doing, bringing this group together.
And you talk about the athleticism in some of those players. Also got to talk about the athleticism that you have in the defensive backfield as well. We saw it against GNK. We saw it last night. Great coverage from those 3 guys in that backfield. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and last night, they gave up, what did we have last night? I think we only gave up 3 yards passing, and last week we gave up 2. But, it was 2 teams that were predominantly going to run the ball. But, and they're compliment those 3 young men that we've been playing a lot of man coverage because of that, trying to stop the run, which makes their job a little bit more difficult, and they have to make the appropriate read with whatever package we got on, blitz package we have on, and they've been communicating really well, and they're also not the biggest guys in the world. I mean, last week against Greenway, they had some pretty tall receivers, and they came after them a lot, trying to throw the fade and get up over the top, and they've been doing a great job not only defending the pass, but coming up and enforcing on the run and causing some turnovers.
Now let's move forward a little bit. You've got ESCO next week at home once again, and ESCO losing in a thriller last night at Moose Lake Willow River there. Talk a little bit about what we can expect from ESCO in that game next week.
Well, it's always, there seems to be a very good rivalry with us and ESCO. The kids like going down there or when they come up here. It seems to be a big game. I know 3-4 years ago, playoff game, it ended up being one of the top 3 scoring games in the Minnesota history. I think it ended up being like 63-48 or something like that. And so, we expect they're a solid team. They're a 3A school, so they're a little bit bigger than we are, but we're going to give them a game. Just the kids are already talking about it last night. They're going to celebrate this game last night and enjoy it, and we'll come in on Monday and get ready to go.
And we've talked about that 2-quarterback system that you guys have had going so far this season, and I'm expecting that you guys are going to continue that. Like you said, you have unique talents in both quarterbacks. I believe they do very well, and you guys have capitalized very well on both of their talents.
Yeah, not only that, they get along really well too, and they just want to watch each other succeed, and so that that really helps with the team aspect of it. The guys up front are young, the offensive line, so every snap that we can get in a game situation, they're going to learn some things where they haven't seen before, and everything. All those snaps add up so that they get more and more experienced here in the next 3-4 games. They're not going to be rookies anymore. They're going to have pretty much seen what they're going to see for the year. So only going to be able to get better from here on out.
And so far, you guys have been poised on offense, taking control. But we also got to talk about the big play. We saw it in GNK with the Dylan Latvala with the 98-yard run for a touchdown. This last game, we saw Ben Eby from the pass from Drotz there. It seemed like the big play is working out for you guys this year.
Yeah, momentum is huge in high school athletics. It don't matter what it is, and we talk a lot in practice, and we talk a lot before the game and during the game about field position and defense and momentum, and that's a big thing. Seems like we need to finish maybe a little bit stronger. Last week we were up at halftime, had a pretty good lead, and this week we had a pretty good lead at halftime and struggled a little bit in the second half momentum-wise. But I think that was not more on attitude. We just got to quit turning over the ball. That's something that we had way too many turnovers last week. I think we had 5. This week we were much better at 2, and that's high school football. Usually whoever comes ahead in the the turnover ratio is the one that's going to be on top, and they really corrected that this week and got a lot better with it.
Now, we're great Polar Alliance football Red win last night. Talk a little bit about what you can expect from your conference this year.
No, this is a great conference. You know, we got the three divisions, all different classes from 1A to 3A, and then this year we combined with the C range for a non-conference game, which was our game last week with Greenway, which is also they try to make it a local rivalry within your division, so the conference does a great job with that. And you know, it's going to be a pretty balanced conference. We got some really tough games coming up all year long. Our whole Polar Alliance and our division is very strong. Of course, we have Moose Lake in there, who's maybe down a little bit from some of their past powers, but is still a very, very good football team. And ESCO, Two Harbors, is 2-0 right now with another big win last night. Duluth Marshall, and so you know, they've combined with Lakeview Christian Academy now in football and got a few more numbers out of that. So, you know, we're 2 games in, and we got a long ways to go. We have to try to stay healthy, and the ball can bounce a lot of different ways yet.
Well, Coach Shimmick, you are 2-0 on the season with 2 great victories so far. We wish you luck the rest of the season. We will be broadcasting next Friday from Deer River as you guys take on ESCO at 7 o'clock next Friday. Good luck the rest of the season, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
That was Coach Brent Shimmick here, and you're listening to the Sports Issue on 1320 KLZY and KLZYradio.com.
Well, you mentioned Mike Grimm talking about it. Keep it here for Gopher football tonight. Also keep it here for Thunderhawk football all season long. And on our sister station, 96.9 KMFY for Deer River Warrior football. I'm Jason Groth. That's Toivo. We're on the Sports Issue. I'd like to thank Brent Shimmick. Great interview there. Head coach of the Deer River Warriors. They're off to an outstanding start at 2-0 and just playing great football.
Yeah, and thank you to Coach Shimmick once again. And, you know, Deer River is looking hot right now. They're doing well. I mean, like Coach Shimmick said, they have a young team. But they're showing a little bit of adversity, you know, under the gun, a couple of mistakes, and they come back and make some big stops on defense and have some big plays on offense.
They had an interesting stretch in a few weeks. You know, ESCO, always a tough team. They played Moose Lake Willow River very tough last night, falling by a score of 8-6. What sounds like a Minnesota Twins baseball game. Speaking of Twins, they're on next with the Inside Twins show on 1320 KLZY. I got to get that little plug in, but I mean, a great game for ESCO against Moose Lake Willow River, a 2-point loss. Probably not the way they wanted to end that streak, of course. 56-game regular season streak that Moose Lake Willow River has. Deer River's got to get a crack at Moose Lake Willow River on October 4th. And I'm looking further down in this Deer River schedule. You follow that up with Duluth Marshall, who's now a strong football team, and Two Harbors, who's off to a strong start this year. And they're sitting pretty well, so they really end that season with a tough schedule. And I'm not looking past Cook County or Evelyn Gilbert, but you have those games to end up. They'll be ramped and ready to go for the postseason.
Yeah, it's they'll be definitely prepared with all the opponents that they're seeing this during this season. You know, Deer River, no slouch by any means on their part either. I mean, but they are a young team, and so far we've seen them really step up when the time is needed. They've made some great adjustments, had some big plays on offense, and they've got some kids that are athletes. They find them every single year over there in Deer River. We talked about it, you know, in the previous hour that they're in the 80s and 90s and even into the 2000s, they've had some great teams over the course of those years. And we're starting to see, you know, more athletes getting out there, and they produce them over there. And it's kudos to the coaching staff over the years and Coach Shimmick.
Well, football is huge in Deer River. They've done a great job with that program. And they're in a fun conference, a Great Polar Alliance. I think it's overlooked because you hear a lot about the C Range, but the Great Polar Alliance is also one of those great conferences.
I think that the Great Polar Alliance is a great conference. They've got the 3 different divisions. They separate it very nicely. You know, who needs a pod schedule when you already have one in that respect? I mean, you know, Deer River and some of these teams, they play a great schedule, and you got to give it to them. I mean, they're playing in that Great Polar Alliance every year, and it's a tough conference no matter what division you're in. And if you come out on the top of that, you're doing pretty well.
Well, in the red, you got Barnum, Bram, and Deer River, just to name a few in that one. And then you go on the other side, you got the blue section as Moose Lake, Willow River, Two Harbors. You got Duluth Marshall in there as well, and Aiken. You got some tough teams. And overlooking, you got ESCO in there. They sit at 0-2, but they may be one of the better 0-2 teams in the state. And their spot, and that's just on the blue side. Then you go to the white side of this Great Polar Alliance. You have in there, of course, it's not loading right now. Trying to get it to load up, some good teams there. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the section in the conference.
It will be, and I think that now that Deer River is in Single A, this is going to really get them prepared for that Single A section, playing some of these really tough teams, some 2A, some 3A even.
Touch on it again today, 2 o'clock in college football action down in Fresano, and the ICC Vikings, a young team this year. Not too many sophomores. They get ready to take on Rochester. That brings the whole town to town to take on the Vikings. That will start at 2 o'clock at the Noble Hall Field. Also tonight, Minnesota Golden Gophers with New Mexico State, the Aggies tonight. 7 o'clock kickoff, pregame show at 6 o'clock. You can hear it all right here, 1320 KLZY. Also tomorrow, Twin Vikings and the Motor City Kitties, the Detroit Lions, 12 noon. That's on our sister station, 96.9 KMFY, trying to get all the work out of the way that we need to before we wrap up the show.
Exactly. Expect a good game tomorrow on KMFY. Tune in for that. The Vikings start their season out with a tough schedule, going back-to-back against NFC North foes in the Lions and the Bears.
And there's always two nice rivalries when those two teams get together, especially the Vikings and the Bears. It's been give or take every other year what's going to happen between those two teams. You never know. You don't want to look too far ahead. Week 1 is always fun because a lot of games are all pick-ems. No matter how bad a team may be, they're all 0-0 and all have aspirations for that Super Bowl in Week 1.
Yeah, they're all saying we want to make the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously everyone does, but sometimes in those good conferences, a lot of times the teams beat up on each other. They see each other twice a year, and it can hurt them, it can help them. But NFC North, always a great division, and now it's great to see Detroit back up in that competitive edge. I don't think that there's a slouch in the NFC North by any means. I think it can be anybody's conference depending on which team shows up on the field week in and week out. So it's going to be a great season for the NFC North.
Another thing I'm looking forward to tonight, college football Saturday, the final game in the rivalry under the lights at the Big House, Notre Dame and Michigan. Go Blue. I'm looking forward to that one tonight and hope Michigan can pull that one off for the Big Ten and get some more momentum and help that Big Ten conference, which is taking some hits and lumps over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean it's we gotta shore it up here. We gotta get things going. Hopefully, this will be a great season for Jerry Kill and his staff. Expect the Gophers to have a victory tonight, but like I said, they've got to go into the conference season undefeated.
And that's the thing they really do, and gotta get some marks. They have a chance to make a deep run and get to a good bowl game this year.
And they do. I mean. Don't get me wrong. Anybody in the Big Ten can come out victorious. I mean, it's really anybody's ball game.
We thank you for tuning into the Sports Issue right here on 1320 KLZY and KLZYradio.com.
You've been listening to the Sports Issue with Jason and Toivo on 1320 KLZY and KLZYradio.com. Make sure to tune in next Saturday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. for the Sports Issue right here on 1320 KLZY.